All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again. I'm Yossi Goslin, NBA salary cap analyst. And we are now 8 days away from the trade deadline. And like I said yesterday when we did this, a lot more stuff. I got enough stuff I want to talk about where I just felt like, okay, I'm going to do another stream. And I'm going to talk about four main things for the most part. So yeah, so like I said from yesterday, if you are new to this, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I will have a lot of quick salary cap transaction analysis, like pretty quickly when news happen. I'll have some really good, just good reactions to it. Follow me on YouTube, subscribe to me there, and also subscribe to Third Apron. Got a lot of good trade deadline content coming out over the next week. So yeah, 8 more days up until the deadline. So I want to get into just mainly, I'm not going to get too cap centric on this one today. I just want to touch on some topics that are more so like touching on rumors, speculation, some players that have been discussed. And I mainly want to start with Myles Turner. So he's been in the news a lot recently, and there's a lot of speculation about whether he might actually be available or not. And this is a report on Clutch Points by Anthony Irwin and Brett Siegel. If you're not subscribed to Anthony Irwin's his stuff on YouTube and everywhere, make sure you do. There's a lot of good stuff, especially up until the deadline. I'm sure the Lakers are going to make another move or two. And he reported about how the Lakers are weighing whether they internally, if they want to trade both the first round picks that they could still trade. They can trade 2029 and 2031 at the most, and this is something that has been actually like rumored for like 3 years now. They supposedly could have done this, like a similar type of deal, trading 2 firsts when they were able to, and get back Buddy Hield along with Myles Turner for Russell Westbrook. But that didn't happen. But if the Lakers are serious about doing something like this, then I just feel like they should have done it earlier. But the main thing I just want to get into is that I just don't see him getting traded. And the main reason for that is just because I think the speculation is born more so out of anything, just his whole contract situation coming up. So the big thing with him, he can't extend. Since he did the renegotiation with the Pacers 2 years ago, he had to wait 3 years to extend, and they only gave him a 2-year extension. So he cannot extend. He has to get to free agency no matter what. And the center market has changed quite a bit this past summer. But the big thing, I think, getting a lot of people around the league to speculate, is he actually going to be available or not? Do the Pacers actually want to pay him? Whatever it may be is their payroll. Because after this trip to the conference finals, the Pacers went ahead and paid just about everybody. They re-signed Pascal Siakam to a 4-year max deal. They gave Andrew Nembhard a veteran max extension that's going to start at $18 million next season. Obi Toppin gave him like a full mid-level type deal. They even gave TJ McConnell roughly like 10 or a little over $10 million a year. So just about everyone got taken care of, and their payroll is pretty high right now heading into next season. This is next season's payroll, and they are projected to be about $16 million below the luxury tax. Right now, Myles Turner is making $19 million, and I would guess he's probably going to get a little bit more than that. I don't know how much more, but if he does, most likely, if they re-sign him, they're going to get over the tax, and that's if they keep everybody else. Most likely, they're probably going to get under it. They don't have a strong history of being taxpayers, and they could easily get below by doing some type of Obi Toppin or TJ McConnell type trade. Dump one of those guys, that takes care of it. So I don't think there's like a huge issue as far as whether they can keep Myles Turner or not. I think they can keep him. They could definitely make the money work. I think the bigger question with any potential Myles Turner's decision is, are you comfortable paying him whatever it is he's going to be demanding on the open market? So I'm going to pull up Spot Track and I'm going to just show a couple comparison, just a couple guys that the main guys that got paid this summer, the main centers. And Nick Claxton, he got that 4-year, $100 million deal that's descending. So $25 million average. And this kind of changed the market a little bit for centers that are not all-star level, but are kind of like in the top 15 to 25 type range, because for the most part, these guys were making like closer to 20 million at best. Guys like Clint Capella, Jakob Poeltl, and now that's starting to go up a little bit. So Nick Claxton, he got his deal with the Nets. And then Jared Allen, he got his extension with the Cavs. Right now he's making $20 million over this season and the next. And then he's going to be making about an average of 30 starting in 2026. So if just by looking at these, Turner, he's probably going to get a raise of some sort. Is he going to get up to this or maybe something closer to Nick Claxton? I don't know. Keep in mind, Jared Allen's 26, almost 27, and Nick Claxton is 25, almost 26. Myles Turner is almost 29 years old. So I guess any sort of apprehension as far as what the Pacers may or may not want to pay him or how long they want to go, they just got to make sure that, I guess, that they feel like he's going to age well into whatever deal they give him. So I don't think the Pacers will be having a hard time bringing him back. He's going to be one of the best players on the open market, and there's not a lot of competitive teams with cap space. There's really none. It's just the only teams that right now are for sure going to have cap space are the Nets and the Wizards. So my feeling is they probably bring him back on something that's fair. And even if hypothetically the Pacers do trade Myles Turner, what's the trade? What are they going to get back? Because they need him right now. They're competitive. They're good. They've been on a pretty good streak as of last week. Haven't really paid attention to what they've been doing recently. But if they're going to trade him, they need to get another big man back. And they can't just get any center back. They need a stretch five. They need someone similar to him. And none of those players are available. So I just kind of want to put the Myles Turner stuff to rest. Maybe he does get traded. Maybe they get an offer that they can refuse if like those two Lakers firsts are on the table, and I could understand if they want to accept that type of offer. But I would be surprised if they move them just because what it would mean for this season. Definitely would negatively affect them now. So yeah, seeing a lot of Lakers and Warriors fans pretty hopeful that Myles Turner could be attainable, I would be very surprised if that happens. So that's number one, Myles Turner. But then I want to transition to another center who his name just persists. He doesn't, no matter how unlikely it is that he's going to get traded, it just doesn't go away. And it started last summer and it's still going now, and it's mainly Walker Kessler. So this is an article by Ben Anderson, and he covers the Jazz. And I just wanted to get into the Jazz side of things, kind of what is the value of Walker Kessler if he were to be moved. So there's been trade rumors for him about linking him to the Lakers since last summer, and that didn't happen. And now that we're closer to the trade deadline, especially with the Lakers wanting a big man, that's kind of been revived that maybe they're still trying to get him. So he's got one more year on his rookie scale contract. He'll be extension eligible this offseason. So you can read the whole piece, but the gist of it then got to the point where even if whatever you think the valuation might be, you can definitely look at it like, okay, what would the Jazz demand? They would probably be asking for some type of combination of the 2 first-round picks the Lakers have to offer and Dalton Connect. Whether you think that's too much or too little or just right, we don't know. But it got me thinking about what could be something that makes sense if he potentially does become available, especially with the Lakers, because we just saw the Jazz do this trade with the Suns where they have this huge surplus of first round picks and they didn't want to have potentially multiple being the end of the first round over the next 7 years. So they consolidated some of them to get a 2031 first from the Suns. And while they can't obviously say that, oh, that's going to be a number one pick or whatever it is by then, maybe a couple of years from now, the Suns crater and that pick looks much better. Maybe they get a little more than what they gave up for it. So the idea is maybe the Jazz could kind of be playing that same type of mindset when it comes to the Lakers picks or just anyone's picks that far out. You never know when a team's outlook is looking horrible. But in my opinion, I do feel like both 29 and 31 is a little too much. I don't know if Connect is even someone that the Jazz would seriously like value that highly, just mainly because of his age. By the time the Jazz are good, he might age out a little bit. But here's something I came up with, and I think it's kind of like a fair middle line. Maybe some Jazz fans will think it's still not enough, but here's the main gist of it, where the Lakers, they gave up the 2 firsts, but they're getting back their 2027 first that they gave up to the Jazz 2 years ago for them to take Russell Westbrook, and they got back D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley. For the Jazz, the main thing is that you're mainly increasing the value of your draft equity. So you get one extra pick, but you're getting them more far out. So you're getting more, you're increasing the value of the types of picks you have, especially because that 2027 first, as you know, when they got it in 2023, okay, maybe there was a good chance thinking by then that the Lakers might already, their window might be shut. Now we're in 2025, might not seem quite that way. Even with LeBron in his age, even in his 22nd season, feels like they might still be relevant then. So why not delay the pick, get some, so you send it back, then get the 2 later ones, send them Jordan Clarkson as well. And to make the money work, it's basically Gabe Vincent plus Jalen Hood-Schifino for Clarkson, because they have to send out more money than they're taking back. And then Wood for Walker Kessler, same type of thing. So that's how the trade mechanics would work for the Lakers. Utah they can take back so much money. They increase their payroll a little bit, take a little bit of bad money. So that's just like a little compromise I could see maybe being fair if Walker Kessler is actually available, but if I'm the Jazz, I wouldn't trade him either. I think I just extend them. I think even when we're looking at some of the figures that some of these guys like Claxton, Jared Allen were making in the 30s, if there's any apprehension for the Jazz to extend them, I wouldn't be. I would, if that's what it takes to bring him, to block him up long term, I think I'd give it to him. And just kind of want to show how that works for the Lakers, though, because if they were able to do something like this, pulling up, just kind of show what the roster would look like if they do all this, because I did the trade. They open up a roster spot. They still be over the first apron, so they wouldn't be able to do signing buyout players who were salaries were at the mid-level exception or above, but they can still aggregate some of their minimum guys. So they already take care of a lot of their needs between the Dorian Finney-Smith trade and this hypothetical one, which, again, I think is pretty unlikely. I think the framework I came up with is pretty interesting. But you could still aggregate like these guys, the 2 minimum guys in Jackson Hayes, Cam Reddish, Shake Milton, and bring in like a $6 million-ish, $7 million player, maybe attach a second-round pick or 2 to make that done. So just to show by incrementally decreasing payroll with another deal, they could be lined up to do yet something else to keep tweaking the roster. So in some ways, I think this is a little more likely than Myles Turner, but I also would not get my hopes up on this one either. So pretty Laker-centric part, and we'll see what they end up happening. I could see them I've seen some reports that they might be out of getting some of the guys that they've been linked to, like Nikola Vucevic, Jonas Valanciunas. I feel like they should definitely focus on some type of guard. Like there's not really any good point of attack defensive guards available, but kind of a sneaky guy. He's not. I think I mentioned this last month. Maybe like an Ayo Dosunmu. What if you can combine these the three guys, bring him, and then that exceeds the $7 million. Bring in a guy like him who could come off the bench and just be like a sneaky underrated guy to bring to your rotation, something like that. Kind of keeping my eye on more someone like that, inexpensive to come off the bench. So then the other thing that happened today, pretty bad news, is the Hawks. They lost Jalen Johnson for the season, and this probably changes a good amount of what they might be looking to do over the next month. I don't know what it is exactly, but the big problem now is it just kind of changes everything about their whole draft situation. Well, not exactly, but when the Hawks did the Dyson Daniels trade, it was like a really significant trade for them. Not only that they got in a guy like that to be exactly what they were hoping for that Dejounte Murray would be, but they already were out their 2025, 27 first-round picks to the Spurs. Things were not looking too good after last year. They outright missed the playoffs. So they bring in Dyson Daniels, who helps them on the court now, is a great fit, but they also bring in 2 firsts, one of which is a Lakers first that's going to be projected 2022. And as of like last month, when the Hawks were looking not bad, like 7-8 seedish, that selection wasn't going to be that much lower than what that Lakers selection was going to be. So in a way, they did a pretty good job hedging, so to speak, their draft obligation to the Spurs, where, okay, if they play well enough, then they end up just getting the same type of selection they were probably going to get anyways had they kept their pick. But now they've been skidding, and I know Jalen Johnson's been out for a little while. I don't know if he's been out all 6 of these games, but obviously not looking good at all. I would imagine that the Sixers probably still do well enough to get into the play-in range so they could surpass the Hawks. If the Spurs, maybe I don't think they're gonna do the De'Aaron Fox trade. The more I think about it now that we're a day into it, I don't see why they would. And there's a Spurs element to this too, since they have the Hawks pick. But I could see the Hawks, going a little higher. Maybe the Raptors, they've won 4 in a row. Maybe they make a trade that improves them a little bit this year. Maybe they pass the Hawks as well. So now the Spurs are looking at getting a pretty good selection in this year's draft. And it's just a really crappy turn of events for the Hawks. And I would guess that they're going to want to try to do something to try to improve the roster. I don't know exactly what it is, though. The first thing that came to mind was, what if they try to trade like Clint Capella and Larry Nance for like Julius Randle to help so the Wolves get off that money for next year, and they get a guy who's kind of like does a lot of the same thing Jalen Johnson does. He can, especially on the ball, but then he's got that $30 million player option for next year. So once Jalen Johnson's back, that would eat up all the Hawks' flexibility for next year. So it doesn't make any sense. When you look at what they've got going on for next year, no, that's something. So they're already like pretty close to the tax, about like 15 million below it. So something I thought of is why don't they trade for someone a little more affordable? Because I was thinking Jeremy Grant, no, same issues where he's going to be getting paid way too much for once Jalen Johnson is healthy. Kyle Kuzma, he's got that descending contract, but then same thing. I don't know how he'll feel about being a reserve. So then I thought about an actual reserve and what if they do something to get it, bring in a guy like Obi Toppin, who I discussed the Pacers could be potentially looking to move off of, so they can have the flexibility to bring in Myles Turner. And this could kind of work with their payroll situation. I went ahead and cut Cody Zeller because he's got that non-guaranteed salary. And the Kings, I had them conveying their selection to the Hawks this year. It's top 12 or 13 protected. But now that with the whole Fox situation up in the air, I'm just not going to give it to the Hawks. I'm just going to assume the Kings hold on to it for now. In which case, they can fill out the roster, which is mostly the same thing as last year. They have a nice forward coming off the bench for them, and they still have enough flexibility. They're going to want to stay below the tax to bring in another center. Maybe they re-sign. If they still have Capella or Larry Nance, maybe they're able to bring back one of them. So that would help them for this year while Jalen Johnson is out, but then also give them a reserve option for next year that they can fit. But overall, just a pretty crappy situation for the Hawks, and kind of really changes things for the Spurs too, because now that they're getting this valuable pick, potentially even more valuable pick from the Hawks, I feel like the Spurs are in a spot where they should just kind of wait and see how things shake out, see what kind of selection they get. They can have two very high selections in this really good draft now. I don't feel like they're in a rush to just get Fox now and expedite their timeline push for the playoffs. I feel like that's something that they can just wait and see for the offseason. So if I'm the Spurs, and I mentioned it yesterday, I would just wait. I don't think it makes sense to do it now, and especially because of this Hawks development. I think that definitely changes things. But then, the more exciting thing I want to get into is some reporting on the Warriors. So I touched on the Warriors yesterday, and they're mainly because there was the whole Jimmy Butler update. So Jimmy Butler got suspended again, and now the Heat reportedly are lowering their asking price on him. It might just be like they'll take back expiring contracts and a draft pick or two, which would be pretty cheap. It seems like they would just want to get off of him. And so this is a follow-up report on that on The Athletic, Anthony Slater and Marcus Thompson. And they kind of touch on the whole Jimmy Butler aspect that, okay, yeah, the Warriors probably do have some little interest, intrigue, in potentially bringing in Butler if the price is right. But then they get into, was it here, about Zach LaVine, that they might be more interested in him. And my first thought on that was, I understand why they wouldn't have done it last year, but it would have been it could have been a much easier thing to do if he was healthy. They could have just done like Klay Thompson to get Zach LaVine, and they'd already have him, but LaVine was injured and he was having a down year. But now LaVine, he's having one of his best years. He's shooting, I think, like 45% from three. And I could see him being a pretty good fit with the Warriors, and actually makes a little more sense financially for their situation. Plus, he's younger. He's like 28, 29 versus Butler being 35. So I could definitely talk myself into this one a little more than Jimmy, especially if the price tag is more or less the same, where they don't have to give up Kuminga and maybe just give up like one protected first round pick, but potentially this year. So yesterday I came up with a deal that had Jimmy and Vucevic to the Warriors, mainly just to illustrate that these are two players that the Warriors have been linked to and that they could get both of them. They basically would, assuming that they're keeping Draymond Green, need to trade Wiggins and like 5 other of their mid-size salary guys to make it work. So I just came up with another flavor of that has both LaVine and Vucevic coming to the Warriors. And same 5-team trade. I think on Fanspo you can only do 5 teams, but it works in the end. It says failed, but it's mostly because they're citing Stepien reasons, which is not the case for both the Warriors and Grizzlies. But Warriors do the same exact framework that I proposed yesterday, where they're getting LaVine and Vucevic. Now, the big thing is that LaVine, he's cheaper than Butler on the salary side, just by a little bit. So yesterday I forgot to show my work, so I had to tweet about it, but I'm going to show you right now their payroll. Here's how this would reflect on them. So as you can see, LaVine's salary is a little higher because he's got a trade bonus. So if traded on trade deadline day, it would go up to this 47.7, which is a little less than Jimmy Butler's salary. So they can even bring in another player in the trade. So I have them also bringing in Torrey Craig and Wendell Moore. Wendell Moore just to make the pieces move around, make everything work on everyone's end. But they're able to get the 14 players at the end of all this, stay right below the hard cap. That's all that matters in the end, is that they stay below the first apron. They're not allowed to exceed it. So they can bring in LaVine's $47 million. Nikola Vucevic is $20 million. And I think you get a much more balanced lineup here with LaVine, especially with his shooting. And then you can actually finally start coming at the 3. You get that stretch option with Vucevic at the 5. You could also sub in Myles Turner for Vucevic. He makes the same amount of money, but like I said, I just don't see the Pacers doing that. But just wanted to bring that up, that they could make that fit as well. Do I think that this team, I guess they do make the playoffs? I'm not convinced they're getting out of the first round until we see enough. But the price, though, because I don't think that it would cost that much for the Warriors to get this off. So I have them trading a lottery protected first round pick in 2025. And then let's get to the Grizzlies part, because when I was thinking of Wiggins teams, I thought about the Raptors yesterday, and that was mostly because I could see there was a reporting about how they might be interested in Ingram. So if they're willing to make a swing for him, maybe they'd be wanting to get Wiggins for a lot cheaper. But then I thought about the Grizzlies, who've been trying to get a new starting 3. They couldn't get Dorian Finney-Smith. They've been linked to Cam Johnson. Why not Wiggins, who's got 2 more years left on his deal, is going to be making somewhere in the high 20s, and brings that, I think he fills that need there, where he can play pretty well on defense and he's that veteran that can start there. He's got the playoff experience, but also he would be the 4th option on offense, which is pretty good. They don't need anyone higher on the scoring shooting hierarchy to shoot more than Ja, Desmond Bane, or Jaren Jackson. So I have them sending out their 2025 lottery protected first round pick, along with getting off Marcus Smart and John Conchar. So they stay pretty salary neutral on this. So then the Bulls, so they get 2 first round picks, which is much better than what I had them getting yesterday, which was none. But they take on a decent amount of bad money, mainly in Smart and Conchar. But I also feel like I explained yesterday, getting guys like Hield and Anderson for Vucevic is kind of as good as I think they'll get for him. Guys that that have second round value. I just don't see teams out there wanting to give up first round value for Vucevic as good as he's been. I just don't see that market. But they get 2 first round picks, and they save a lot of money in this trade. They save about I want to say 20 million, something like that. And when I put the cap sheet together, they get their draft picks, they save a ton of money, they stay cap neutral next season, so they could still re-sign Josh Giddey. But then the other aspect is this type of framework I put together would have the Bulls generate a $35 million trade exception for Zach LaVine. So they can re-sign Josh Giddey, who's their main key free agent this offseason, and then they have this $35 million that they can use instead of cap space to take on more unwanted money to help with this rebuild they'd be entering. So I think this would be a pretty nice exit for the Bulls if they end up trading both LaVine and Vucevic in the trade deadline. Pistons, same thing as yesterday. I have them taking Schroeder because I think if they don't have really much else to do, why not bring in another guard? He fits in their cap space exactly, and then they could immediately reroute him later if they want to take on more money in a trade. And simultaneously, I have them sending out Wendell Moore for Drew Eubanks, so they get another rotation upgrade, particularly at center. And then the Jazz, I just have them taking on Payton for Eubanks, increase the money, get a second round pick. Just mainly at these two teams to help facilitate other things. You're going to need teams like the Pistons and Jazz to help, that can take on more money, help these teams that are kind of limited due to aprons or not wanting to exceed the tax, to help these teams get deals done. So this is just like a framework I put together. I think makes a good amount of sense. Kind of like it. Think it's pretty fun. And then as far as the Warriors, I just like this also for next year, what it means for next year more than getting Jimmy Butler. Because if they get Jimmy Butler and he demands a max salary, that would start him at $54 million. But Zach LaVine's salary next year is about $46 million. It'd be a little more with the trade bonus. I didn't include it in this projection, but they get to keep this team for next year. Here's a little projection I put for Jonathan Kuminga. I projected that if he were to extend with the Warriors, it'd be like 5 for 135, which if you give him the full raises could start as low as $23 million. So I could see him still getting that this season. We'll see. Maybe that changes, but also, like I said, not a great market unless the Brooklyn Nets are going to give him like a huge offer sheet to see if the Warriors blink. I'm not sure where another offer is. Keep in mind, the Nets have done this before. Back in 2016, when Sean Marks took over, he gave crazy big offer sheets to the Otto Porter and Tyler Johnson, I think someone else, and every single time those sheets got matched. So now that he's about to have cap space for the first time and since then, I'm curious to see if they might want to do that for a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, maybe give him like a max offer sheet. But anyways, we'll see. That's a tangent. We don't need to get into that more, but as you can see though, they can keep this window where they have LaVine and Vucevic for this season and next season, because if they're able to get Kuminga at like this type of level salary, they can fill out their roster with their second round pick and still finish well right below the second apron. I would guess that the objective would be, okay, we can spend some tax, whatever. It'd be about $76 million. That's really not much, relatively speaking, to what the Warriors have been spending over the last decade. But I would guess that they just don't want to exceed that second apron to not have those future draft pick penalties in the future. Maybe they'd be okay with it. They probably need to win at least a playoff series this upcoming season to justify that. So that's about it. I just wanted to touch on those things. And we'll see how things go. If I'm still available, I want to try to do some more of these as much as possible. Thanks for tuning in again. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Yossi Goslin. You can see the links in the overlays down low. Make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube. And please check out Third Apron on Substack. There's going to be a lot of good, hardcore salary cap analysis, where this stuff is a little more casual, more fun, trade talk type stuff as we get into the trade deadline. I get into a lot more deeper stuff regarding the cap in Third Apron. So thanks for tuning in again, everyone, and I'll see you soon.